Hi, everybody. I've been working at the Otago Museum for a really long time. My name is Cody, and I'm the collection manager at Tūhura. I've been the collection manager of natural science for about 22 years now, and I have been using Vernon the entire time that I've been here. It's been quite a fun journey, actually, because I've gone from having to do most of my work just with pen and paper and through to now where we do most of it straight into the database, which is awesome. So primarily my work has been collection management work like rehousing, inventorying, cataloguing, planning for hypothetical large-scale collection moves, so purely hypothetical, and processing new acquisitions, installing exhibitions, though pretty much everything. And I've also been doing curatorial work like identifications, research, supporting visiting researchers. And so I have had a really good chance to see where things work and where they don't. It's also included things like curating exhibitions from scratch, anything from one object right through to a full gallery redevelopment. And I manage a frozen collection, which is a whole other thing. So we're going to go through a little bit about what we use Vernon for. So just a wee bit of, I guess what I just said was the background about the work that we support, but how we support it is using Vernon specifically. And I'm going to go through 3 specific fields that we use: the Registrar notes, the Curator notes, and the Researcher notes. Talk about the ways we use them and how they're different. I'm actually really keen to hear what you guys do as well if you're using those fields, because it's really easy to feel like you're just kind of doing it the way you do it and not know what other people do. So a lot of what we're doing when we're managing the collection, it's simply recording what we did and why. Realistically, if I had that information for the work that was done in the past 150 years, my job would be a lot easier. And so that's why I try to have our staff move their mindset away from what works for me today to what will future me want to know and what will people not realize was a thing 150 years from now. So it's worth remembering that you will always forget the details, even if you think it's really clear and really obvious, because if you think of the way language changes across 150 years, your notes won't mean anything unless they're sensible ones. So we'll jump right in. The registrar notes, we primarily use them for the registrar or the collection manager to take notes about what they've been doing. So I have some really strict rules about it, and that's to use plain English, simple descriptions, and using full proper spelling and grammar and punctuation. And that's because people aren't going to understand what your notes mean if it's very note form, but that's probably just me being really careful. So we use it for descriptions of any decisions that we made affecting the management of an object. For example, when the catalogue number has been changed and why that was changed and how it was changed. So an example that I have is we used to number a group of pinned insects. If they all had the same data, they all got the same number. And then we changed that so that individual specimens, every single specimen got its own number. And that left us with a bit of a paperworky mess. And so what we do is we say IV 1 to 10 used to all be called IV 1, 2, 3, 4. Or something a little bit better where IV 1, 2, 3, 4 contained 10 specimens. They are now renumbered to be IV 1 to IV 10. So keeping it as simple as we can so that it is really obvious and it's not defending ourselves at all. It's just stating what we did. And that way, if someone disagrees in the future, they can make that change confidently, knowing that they're reversing something that they disagree with. We've also used the field when what we decided is something that needed a decision. So, for example, the bird box that you see just in the right-hand corner of this photo, every single bird in there has its own number, but we never pull a single bird out of the box because they're all attached to it. So technically it's one object, but there's multiple objects and they have the individual numbers because of the one specimen, one number rule. So what we ended up doing, and we'll talk about this a bit later, is we turned it into a packing unit, but we had to note in the registrar notes that that's what we had done so that future people won't be confused by what we did. We have the same rules for the curator notes and the registrar notes. The thing with the curator notes is that it's primarily for curatorial staff. So it's for the decisions that are made around identification and anything like that where there might be some kind of a discussion or disagreement because it's based on somebody's opinion. Sometimes something gets re-identified and we need to explain why it was re-identified. There might be information about its history that doesn't fit sensibly into the provenance notes. Also, the sort of thing where the curator has said it's not a good example for display, or it's not a good example of its type, or that it's an important or unusual kind of whatever it is. And that's very much a curatorial decision and an opinion. And so it can be argued with. But this is just a way to, again, without any apology, without any too much explaining, just to say this is what we decided and why and when. And the really good thing about these two tables is that you can put a person's name and the date on it so that you can go, oh, well, that person was right at the very beginning of their career. So it's kind of okay to disagree with them. Or if they've been doing it for 50 years, you kind of go, okay, well, they probably knew what they were doing by then. So that's one of the ways that I really enjoy this field. So the researcher notes are notes that any researcher has left. So originally we said that these were only for visiting researchers and for honorary curators. And realistically, these days, the more that we use it, anyone can be a researcher. If I wanted to do research into butterflies and I was able to suddenly go, oh, I know male from female, then I might put a note in the researcher notes explaining that I think it's female because of its antenna shape or whatever. And it's any notes, any opinions. It doesn't really have a format for us because sometimes the researcher is very much writing notes for themselves, and that's where having their name and the date is really helpful because their notes might not be true after they've been doing it for, 10 or 20 years. They'll disagree with themselves, or they'll just realize that they were very confident when they were young and they didn't know what they were doing. So it's really down to the researcher. So yeah, they're kind of a note to self kind of thing a lot of the time. And other times that we have used it is to note when a sample has been taken. So for if someone's doing MOA research and they've gone through a lot of specimens, we just make a note really quickly saying who the researcher was and when they came in and that a sample was taken. They're often working notes as well, so things that need follow-up, things that have question marks around a possible re-ID where they're not sure either, or things that where they've noted that they have an idea for a research project, but it's not off the ground yet and they don't want to talk about it, but they wanted to put a flag on the specimen. So we just do that for them. It's not a big deal to add that information in. And we get that quite a lot with entomologists, actually. They go, oh, I could do a study on these because I see you've got this many of that species. And so this is where the picture with lots of butterflies comes in handy because sometimes the people they think they're coming in for 3 specimens and then you bring out a whole drawer full and they get quite excited. I just wanted to show packing units because this is something I get really excited about. So I'm going to talk for a while. So we use packing units a lot. Our collection includes so many small things. Like we've got spiders that are in vials, we've got pinned insects, we've got needles and awls and fragments from archaeological digs. It's been really useful to have packing units for larger objects as well. So things like study skins or objects that have multiple parts, like a tea set or a skeleton. But we actually started using packing units in about 2009 in a major way because we had to do a huge bulk registration project. And those of you who've done one will understand how big a task that can feel. We originally got asked, how big is our collection for real though? Because we had been bandying around a number and putting it into our reports and saying, this is the number, this is how many specimens we have, this is how many in our collection. And no one had really actually counted everything. So this was a way for us to count. And at the time, it was just for bulk registration, but we turned the bulk registration records into packing units, which became amazing. The idea was to count everything that didn't yet have any kind of cataloguing happening. So that was most of the wet collection, so all those spiders and vials, most of the pinned insects, which you can see behind me in the photograph there, and a whole lot of other geological specimens and things where there's just a lot of things in a box. And so we went around and we assigned a little packing unit number to each shelf, each drawer, each box, each jar, and they tie into a record in the database. So Vernon has a packing unit that's like a wee database about packing units, and we use it a lot now. We've got Ento, so ENTO for Ento boxes. So everything that's a drawer or a box with pinned insects has that number. And everything that is a Forster spider jar has FORS. So you get the idea. They're all just a whatever we made up at the time kind of number, and they go one through however many we've got. And that means we can add as we go. The great thing about them is that once everything has a number, you can move all of those things. So if you've got 300 pinned insects, you don't want to have to type out 300 numbers. What we do is we just move the box as a whole, and the system then moves all of those 300 objects at the same time. The problem is if you have the wrong things recorded in the box, so you have to be really on top of making sure your inventory is correct for this. Basically, what we were doing was going, this is the box number, this is how many objects are inside it, and left it at that as an object record and a packing unit record. And it turned into a very useful tracking tool for movements around the building, but also if someone asks us if we have a species, we can look up that species in the database, find all the specimens that we have, and then see who's in a packing unit. And it has been amazing. It's saved a lot of my time and way more of my sanity than I want to admit to. I guess the main thing with packing units and managing movements of them is just to be a bit flexible, because a lot of the time the identifications when you're using specimens that have been bulk registered is that they're not confirmed by curatorial staff right now. It's just based on whatever the labels said. And so the count is quick and it's a little bit messy, and you can open a jar or a box and find out that there isn't actually anything in there with that name. It was just what someone once thought it was. We sort of use that as an excuse to then catalogue that material, which has been really good for our general management of the collection as well. We had a lot of paperwork that we used to do back in the day, and then we changed it to a homemade bespoke database that caught all of our access requests and our incoming receipts. And then we decided as an institution that we wanted to streamline the processes. And then we asked the folks at Vernon CMS to help us, and they were amazing. And not to blow smoke or anything like that, because it was actually fantastic. We were able to work with Vernon to rework existing activities and also to build others that suit us. And my goodness, it's been amazing so far. We've only had it for a little while and it's been great. So incoming receipts is something that was always part of Vernon as far as I can tell. So there's a entry is what it was called, just entry and incoming material. And so that was the idea, was to fill out all the information and it will spit out a receipt for you. We didn't use it before, and we do now, and it's been wonderful. So our bespoke system caught everything in a very specific way that the staff got very used to. And where Vernon CMS staff came in and made it amazing for us was that they listened to what our staff needed and made that happen. So we were able to get our incoming receipt page to look and feel very much like our old system that they'd gotten used to. So we have staff who didn't necessarily even like working with computers, right through to those of us who've been doing it every day forever. And so we had to make sure it was a system that people would actually use. And so what's been really great is that now when people log in, they have to log in as themselves, because Vernon is a bit more secure than our old system. And every one of the fields that is in our pages, at least, it matches what the old system was. So we could plonk all the data from our old system into the new, which means everything is searchable from years and years ago. And the staff feel confident to still fill out these forms, even though it looks like a database and is a bit scary potentially. So it's going really well. And the other thing that works really well with it is that you have to put people in carefully, and you can catch all of their details. We have people who've donated to us many times through the years, and we're able to track their different addresses and the dates that go with them because of the person database that's in Vernon. And so we can say the same person has a different address on this date as they did 10 years ago, it's been quite wonderful. Sorry, I keep using all these big words, the big excited words, so it's not going to stop. I'm sorry, it's going to keep going because we're on to access requests. Before, like I said, we had people accessing the collection all the time. We tracked things a lot of the times on spreadsheets. Then we got our bespoke system, which was more about putting out a receipt. And then we realized that it was really hard for us every time we had to do our annual reporting because it was a little bit scattered. We enter all the information into Vernon, hit save, and it spits out a receipt for us. And it's either a receipt for incoming, or in this case, it's a proposal that we then get physical signatures on. So either way, the paperwork's coming straight out of the system and it's tracking everything for us, and annual reporting is super duper easy, which we like. And again, the access requests follow the same layout and systems that we had in our previous system. And this is something that the Vernon CMS people were able to build for us. And again, it's been amazing. So we also do this with acquisitions. So acquisitions are donations that people give us. This is usually the process of confirming that, yes, we're adding it to the collection. So where the incoming receipt is someone gave us a thing and we're very happy that they gave it to us. This is the next step where we say, and we want to put it in the collection. Let's do the paperwork to confirm that the boss says yes, because we don't want to accept something into the collection that we either have to pay for or that we have to look after from the long term without making sure the director has given us the big tick. So again, we were tracking just with paperwork and then with our system that we had built, but it was with an agreed format for acquisitions because there were certain things that the curators had to tick off as, yes, I've checked this, yes, I've checked this. And it's things like it's legally owned by the person giving it to us. There's nothing dodgy going on in terms of it being an endangered species or anything like that, and whether it fits with our collection policy, all of these things. And now we're tracking all of that stuff in Vernon, so everything is findable and searchable, and it's all very consistent as well. So we make sure that there's no extra things that people can add unless it's in a note field. Now, where the flexibility comes in is that this activity is actually sort of a buddy of the access proposals. So I think acquisitions was a thing that existed, and then we've sort of snuck in there and got it to also be for access requests. And it's been really good. We actually just use the procedural status. So I think this is what this page is. It's showing the procedural status options where we've just gone access : and then for an acquisition proposal, it's a whole other thing. So there's lots of different kinds of access that we offer, and then acquisition proposal is a single option. And that is the best way that we could think of to split the two without having to rebuild an entire new activity, which was a much bigger deal. And again, it follows our old system. It works really well. And yeah, we're really happy with it.